For thousands of older Britons born before 1959, there's a storm brewing in the pension system, one that many never saw coming, and even fewer are prepared for. We're not talking about vague rumors or misleading headlines. This is real, documented change, quietly taking shape behind closed doors at the Department for Work and Pensions. If you were born before 1959, or if you care for someone who was, what's happening right now could directly affect your monthly income and your long-term peace of mind. You might have noticed your state pension payments feeling a little thinner than expected, or perhaps you've received a confusing letter from the DWP lately that didn't quite make sense. You're not imagining it. There is, in fact, a serious adjustment being made to how pensions are calculated and delivered, especially for those who reached pension age under the old system, those born before April 6, 1951 for men and April 6, 1953 for women. These people are locked into the basic state pension, not the new flat rate system that came in 2016. And while the newer system has its flaws, many under the old scheme are now discovering they've been left behind, underpaid, or worse, facing deductions they never agreed to. This isn't just about a few missing pounds, it's about a fundamental shift that could mean the difference between managing your bills and falling into hardship. And with inflation still squeezing every pound, and utility prices not dropping fast enough to help, the last thing any pensioner should face is uncertainty about their entitlements. Yet here we are, and the silence from official sources is making it even harder for the people affected to get answers. In today's video, we're not just skimming headlines. We're digging deep, looking at official DWP documents, recent government responses, and first-hand accounts from pensioners already feeling the impact. If you want clarity, not confusion, truth, not spin, then you're in the right place. Let's get into exactly what's changing, why it's happening now, and how you can protect yourself or your loved ones from being unfairly cut off. Now, before we dive into the finer details, let's take a moment to understand how we got here. Many older pensioners in the UK have been quietly pushed to the margins over the years, and that's not just a dramatic statement, it's a harsh reality. The two-tier pension system, introduced when the new state pension came in 2016, was supposed to simplify things. But in practice, it's left millions confused, particularly those who retired before the changes took place. While newer retirees fall under the so-called flat rate system, older pensioners, especially those born before 1959, are still stuck navigating the maze of the basic state pension, additional pension entitlements, and complex means testing rules. And if that sounds like a mouthful, it's because it is. The system wasn't designed with clarity in mind, and that's left the most vulnerable members of our society scratching their heads while their payments seem to shrink without explanation. For years, people trusted that their pensions were being calculated correctly. After all, if there's one thing you should be able to rely on after working your whole life, it's your pension, right? Unfortunately, the recent wave of audits, backlogs, and recalculations at the DWP has exposed something quite different. It turns out that many pensioners, especially women, were underpaid for decades. In some cases, the shortfalls added up to tens of thousands of pounds. And now, rather than addressing all of this with transparency and urgency, we're seeing more confusion, more adjustments, and in some cases, what appears to be quiet deductions from people who can least afford it. One of the biggest concerns right now is the way that inherited pensions, especially from spouses who have passed away, are being recalculated. Many widows and widowers born before 1959 are only just now being told that the amount they are receiving is being reviewed. But the reviews aren't necessarily resulting in more money. In some cases, the DWP claims that past overpayments must be clawed back, even if those overpayments were entirely due to their own errors. So instead of a nice letter saying, "We owe you money," people are opening envelopes to find that they are suddenly receiving less than the month before, and with no proper explanation. That's not just frustrating, it's frightening. Imagine being 75, living on a fixed income, and discovering that the DWP has decided to lower your payments based on a calculation you had no say in and barely understand. Let's not forget that this is all happening at a time when living costs are soaring. Heating bills remain sky-high despite government energy support winding down. Food prices haven't dropped back to normal either, and many seniors are finding that their pensions simply don't stretch as far as they used to. For someone born before 1959, who may now be in their mid to late 60s or even into their 80s, there's not much room for financial error. there's certainly no easy way to make up for a sudden drop in monthly income. Many have no savings to fall back on, and working is not an option anymore, not by choice, but because of age, health, or simple physical limitations. So every pound really does matter, and any unexplained cut isn't just a nuisance, it's a potential crisis. Now, if you're sitting there wondering, well, how do I know if I'm affected? You're not alone. One of the major failures in how this change is being handled is the lack of clear communication from the DWP. Most people don't know whether they are part of a review, whether their payments are safe, or whether they should be preparing for a nasty surprise. Some people only find out they are involved when they get a letter that's so technical it may as well be written in Latin. Others never get a letter at all, they just notice their payment is less, and have to spend hours on the phone with DWP trying to find out why. And we all know how painful those phone calls can be. You're kept on hold forever, you get passed from one department to another, and in many cases, the person on the other end doesn't even seem to have access to your full records. There's also the issue of pension credit and how it ties into all of this. Many seniors who receive pension credit are especially vulnerable, because any changes to their state pension, no matter how small, can affect their eligibility for other benefits like housing assistance or the warm home discount. So a small cut in one area can snowball into a much bigger loss in another, leaving some pensioners suddenly struggling to cover rent or heating. And when they try to challenge these changes, they often face a bureaucratic wall of silence. Appeals take months, forms are complex, and getting someone to take accountability is like chasing shadows. One of the saddest things about all of this is how many people simply give up. They accept the cut, they assume the government must be right, and they quietly adjust their lives, cutting back on food, skipping social events, or keeping the heating off just a little longer, because they feel powerless. But let's be clear, this is not how it should be. Pensioners deserve clarity, dignity, and respect. They should not be left to fend for themselves while departments shuffle paperwork and make decisions without proper oversight. And they certainly should not be blamed or punished for the mistakes of the very system that's supposed to support them. So what exactly is the government saying about all this? Well, publicly, the DWP insists that these adjustments are necessary to ensure fairness and accuracy. That sounds noble enough, until you realize that fairness and accuracy seem to come at the expense of those who are least able to fight back. There's been no major campaign to inform people of these changes. There's no dedicated helpline to assist those affected. There's not even a basic promise that any deductions will be explained in plain English. Instead, there's a quiet rollout, done bit by bit, with minimal publicity, almost as if the hope is that most people won't notice. Now, we're not here to stir panic. That's never the goal. But we are here to inform and to empower. Because once you understand what's happening, you can start taking action. You can request a detailed breakdown of your pension entitlements from the DWP. You can challenge decisions that don't make sense. You can ask your local MP to raise the issue in Parliament. And perhaps most importantly, you can share this information with others, your neighbors, your friends, your family members, so that no one is caught off guard. Awareness is the first step to accountability, and accountability is the only way we'll see real change. Let's also talk about the long-term implications. If this trend continues, what does it mean for future pensioners, those approaching retirement who may still be under the old system, or caught in the transition zone between the old and new rules? The concern is that this is just the beginning. If deductions and recalculations can be made this quietly, without transparency, what's to stop further cuts in the future? And if the public accepts it without protest, will the government feel emboldened to go even further? We've already seen proposals floating around about increasing the state pension age again, and there's growing political chatter about linking future pension increases more closely to inflation rather than the triple lock. While that might sound logical on paper, we all know that inflation calculations don't reflect the true cost of living for pensioners. The basket of goods used for inflation stats doesn't include things like increased heating usage due to age, or the cost of accessible transport. So even when pensions are supposedly protected, in real life, pensioners are still falling behind. But here's the thing, change is possible. In fact, we've already seen it in action. After widespread media coverage and public pressure, the DWP was forced to admit to the underpayment scandal involving women who were married or widowed and not receiving the full pension they were owed. That scandal, which began as a few isolated cases, turned into a major investigation that resulted in billions being repaid. So there is power in awareness. When people speak up, when they organize, and when they demand better, things start to shift. So if you or someone you love was born before 1959, now is the time to pay close attention. Don't ignore those letters from the DWP, no matter how boring or technical they seem. Don't be afraid to ask questions, even if the person on the other end of the phone seems impatient. You have the right to know exactly how your pension is calculated. You have the right to challenge decisions that don't make sense. And you absolutely have the right to expect honesty and fairness from a system you've paid into your entire working life. In the end, this story isn't just about policy, it's about people. It's about dignity in later life. It's about making sure that after decades of hard work, no pensioner is made to feel like a burden or an afterthought. The government has a duty of care, and the rest of us have a duty to hold them to it. If you've made it this far, thank you for staying with me. This information might not always be easy to hear, but it's vital. The more we understand what's happening, the better we can protect ourselves and each other. If this video helped you, please share it with someone you know who might be affected. Leave a comment below with your experience or questions. I do my best to read them all, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the updates that truly matter. Stay informed, stay strong, and as always, take care of yourselves and one another.